Oops. It often involves testing approaches and solutions in a real-world context. So taking forward that generative aspect, it's generating solutions, prototypes, methods, and trying them out. It also is participatory and co-produced often. And it often integrates different perspectives, lived experience, and other kinds of expertise and forms of knowledge. And it is often rooted in what we call constructivist forms of knowledge. So hopefully that is a bit of a summary. There are other types of design research. This is not the only one, but this is what we're foregrounding in this doctoral network. And I'm going to give you 3 examples linked to 3 of the organizing themes that are central to the network. The first is materializing and visualizing. And the example comes from a project by the UK Policy Lab, which is a team inside the UK government civil service who have all sorts of expertise in the team, including design, service design, speculative design, and other forms of knowledge. And they did a project visualizing aspects of future scenarios to enable issues to be discussed about autonomous marine shipping. So they worked with stakeholders involved in the question of marine shipping and what might happen when that becomes autonomous, meaning vehicles or ships are themselves autonomous. And they use different design techniques to imagine and bring to bear some of that expert knowledge so that regulations and policy could be developed. So that's one example where the visualizing and the materializing of something highly uncertain was used to develop and shape policy. A second example, very common in design research, and one of the themes in our network is around prototyping. This image comes from another project from the UK, led by my colleague, Professor Alison Prendeville, as part of a public collaboration lab, led by my colleague, Professor Adam Thorpe, working closely with Camden Council, so a local government. And it's particularly, what you see in this photo here is particularly focused on ideas that were developed, were then prototyped. And you can see here one of the students showing a very simple paper-based prototype of what a future service touchpoint might look like with somebody who would be a beneficiary or user of that service. And then a third example or rather theme that we have central to the network is the question of how to facilitate practice systems change. And this example is specifically around climate transitions, led by my colleague, Dr. Lara Salinas, who is one of the supervisors in the doctoral network. And she worked with her students and also local government officers and also local communities, citizens to work together to explore sustainable futures and particularly focusing on connecting up different activities and leading to systemic change, not just designing services. So those are 3 brief examples of the kind of constructivist, very practically oriented, collaborative research that is central to design research and the network. And all 3 of those examples come from the UK because the UK and my university, University of the Arts London, is one of the universities which is part of the network. So I'm now going to hand over to Marzia, who's going to talk about the network that we are both co-directors of, and the opportunity and a lot more of the detail. So I'll hand over to you, Marzia.
Thanks, Lucy, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks also from my side to the team at Climate Kick that is helping us host this event and promote, disseminate this new and very exciting opportunity for promoting design research in this new space. So indeed, the Co-Design for Transitions is a newly funded and just started Marie Curie network that is bringing together a number of experts, organizations, actually all over the world, not only in Europe, to work exactly on the topics that Lucy was just describing, putting at the center design research. So as you can see, there is a big concentration of partners in Europe, but also we are touching USA and Australia. And we are very proud of being able to pull together this amazing network that will support these 13 candidates that we have to advertise for. So overall, this is a project that will last for 4 years, officially kicked off 1st of January of this year, and includes 8 universities, 13 doctoral positions, of course, and 15 associated partners. The call for applications for those 13 positions, and I guess that many of you are here connected because you want to hear more about those, just opened on the 15th of January, so about a week and a half ago, and will be open until the 26th of February. So this is indeed a very important chance for us to share a little bit more about what we are looking for with you, but also for you to ask questions and interact with us directly on some of the aspects that concern this network. So as Lucy was mentioning, the big ambition of this project and the network overall is to use design research as a springboard to investigate what happens at the crossroad between democratic innovation and climate transitions. We indeed believe that this is one of the most interesting and exciting areas of research in which we can be today. And there are tons of research questions that need to be asked and researched, investigated, and answered at this crossroad. So we are proposing to do this exactly with design research and look into methods like prototyping, materialization, visualization, and facilitation to really understand how can we practically facilitate the answers, the development of answers for some of the most important challenges that we are facing in our society nowadays, really helping through practice and helping normal people, citizens, the society, public organizations, private organizations work better together. So the universities that are involved in these and that are going to host these 13 doctoral candidates are here listed in this slide. So we are covering Politecnico di Milano, that is actually the university where I am a professor at. Which will also 2 positions, but then we also have universities in Denmark, Aalborg and South of Denmark University. We have a university in Poland with SWPS. We have a university in Belgium, which is the Brussels School of Governance. And we also have RMIT, which sits between Spain and Australia, which will also host 2 candidates between Spain and Australia, and together with Elisava, which is always based in Spain. And then we also are very lucky to have 2 positions that will be hosted at the University of the Arts, London in UK, and another position to be hosted at Molinagi University in Budapest. So one of the peculiarities of this network is that it is also an enlarged network. As you can see, there are 10 positions that are directly funded by the European Commission under the Marie Curie funding scheme. And then we have 3 additional positions that are funded by national governments, both in UK and Hungary, which indeed increase the value and the benefits of having this network overall. So over to the next slide. Here is what are we promising to any of you that is going to apply, and especially to those 13 lucky people that will be selected and will work with all of us, all of this network for the full 3 years. What are we promising? We are promising, first of all, to provide to you a unique experience because those 13 doctoral projects are unique, are super cutting edge from our perspective in terms of research. And we're also promising some concrete things, not only involving you in this network for 3 years, but also each one of those candidates will be employed by one of those universities that I just listed and will be registered in the PhD program of that specific organization. So these candidates will receive a double-layered training at least, one that will be the local training that the university in which the person is enrolled will provide, but also dedicated training that will be provided by the entire network, not only the universities involved, but also all the associated partners, which indeed increase extremely the value and the benefit of being in this exchange and in this community that we are starting. Then the doctoral candidates will also have 2 secondments, which will be practice-oriented research experiences into 2 different associated partners in the network, for which travel and accommodation costs will be covered by the network itself. Probably one of the highest value that we promise for being part of this adventure together with us is to be part of this international cohort of 13 doctoral candidates that together with us will be creating this unique community. What does the overall journey look like? This is a diagram that we are still continuing to refine and that we have pulled together in order to depict also for ourselves what does it look like overall. So first of all, as I just mentioned, the project lasts for 4 years, but the DC work and employment will last for 3 of those 4 years. Ideally, all DCs will start, and when I mention DC, I mean doctoral candidates, of course. They will start their employment during the half of the first year, so ideally in September of this year, and will end ideally their PhD journey in the middle of the 4th year of project, which overall makes, as I was mentioning, 36 months of employment as well as being PhD candidates. So this is another peculiarity. During this journey, you will be both an employee at this university in which you will do your PhD and also a PhD candidate, which means that you will also receive a salary for doing this research together with us. There will be a number of training experiences, as I just mentioned. So there will be moments of in-person training, and there will also be a continuous type of training that will be arranged by the network. And this goes, as I was already mentioning, on top of the local training that each university will provide to the candidates that will be enrolled at their organization. Then between year 2 and year 3, there will be the 2 secondments that I was mentioning, during which the candidates will be hosted by 2 different associated partners at their premises to conduct practice-led research and work together with these experts in these other organizations to further enrich and move even beyond the research that they are already conducting at their university. There will also be 2 very relevant network events that we plan to organize. The first one will be in year 2 in Milan, in ideally May 2025, but of course the month might still be changed slightly. And then we will have a closing conference for this project in 2027. And an additional further benefit of this network will be that each candidate will have a team of 5 supervisors that will work closely with him or her, supporting the development of this research journey. 2 will be the main supervisors that will follow the candidate daily, which are the lead supervisor and the co-supervisor at the recruiting university where the candidate is enrolled and employed. Then there are the mentors that are the people, the experts at the secondment partners that will also support in key moments the candidate, and especially when the candidate will be at their premise conducting research and collaborating with them. And then the fifth supervisor is an additional co-supervisor coming from another university and ideally also another discipline that will further provide guidance, supervision, and feedback to the research of the candidate, trying to ensure as much as possible that the candidates are thoroughly followed and that develop really impactful and meaningful research in this field. So a little bit of a timeline for this year. What are the key moments that you should be looking out for? The first one I already mentioned, which is that the call for applications is already open. It opened on the 15th of January and will remain open until the 26th of February. So if you're looking into applying, this is the right moment to do it. Preparing your papers, getting acquainted with the digital system in which we ask you to apply, and finally apply as soon as you're ready. Between March and May, we will carry out interviews. We have prepared a number of selection panels for each one of the doctoral projects advertised. And these selection panels will arrange 2 different interview moments with the candidates that pass the first moment of screening. And by the end of April, we plan to conclude this recruitment and selection process to then offer those selected candidates the job, the position, by mid-May, to give candidates enough time to take their final decision, start preparing for moving to the university in which they have been selected for employment. And then hopefully in September, start all of those 13 employments, which then will lead us toward the end of September, October, to the first in-person event with the entire network and the 13 newly employed candidates all together to get to know one another and start working in this new and exciting space. Over to the next slide. Some important information, and here I get a little bit more technical in terms of what type of candidates are we looking for. There is, first of all, no restrictions on nationality. Candidates from anywhere in the world can indeed apply to any of the 13 positions. The only thing that matters is that those candidates really comply with the regulations of the university to which they are applying. Of course, this might also imply that you get a visa if it's required, and especially if you come from outside of Europe. The academic backgrounds that we are mainly looking for are the ones listed here in the slide. So anything that is near design, design research, participatory design, co-design, service design, sustainable design, system design, and any other field that relates to design. We also welcome backgrounds linked to democratic innovation, policy studies, but also climate transition, anthropology, political science. So really any of the many disciplines that are linked to the main topic that the network is investigating on. And we certainly are adopting a policy of equal opportunities. So we are making sure that our recruitment process strictly aligns with the European Charter for Researchers and the Code of Conduct for Recruitment that the European Commission has put forward, and also to the European Commission strategy on equal opportunities for women and men. So there will be no discrimination, of course, in this sense. So over to the next slide, what are the eligibility criteria that we look for? So here we have, again, a double-sided, a double level of eligibility. There is an initial entry level of eligibility that concerns the rules of the European Commission for getting the Marie Curie funding. And then there is a second layer, which is the eligibility criteria of each individual university that is hosting a PhD position. So first of all, very important, you should not already have a doctoral degree. If you already have a doctoral degree, unfortunately, you are not eligible for these positions. A very important rule that comes from the European Commission is the so-called mobility rule, which is the number 2 in the slide. This rule says that you can only apply to those positions that are held at universities in countries in which you have not resided for more than 12 months in the 3 years that precede the recruitment date. So the day in which actually the call for applications closes. This is quite an important rule. It's one of the hard rules that the Commission has. So please, if you're looking into applying for a specific position, make sure to check that you comply with this mobility rule. This is important also because in the application process, we will be requiring you to upload documents that can provide evidence of where you have been resided in those 3 preceding years. You also are required not to already be permanently employed by the university to which you are applying. So you should not be already be working there. And also you should meet the English language proficiency requirements of the university you're applying to. So this is not a general rule of the network, but it is a local rule of each university, and it might vary from university to university. So in this specific case of the English proficiency level, I really advise those of you interested to check this specific rule with the university in which you're interested in. And of course, it will be very important as well for anyone who applies to agree with carrying out the secondments and with undertaking the exact project that is advertised online. There is a lot more detail on these, and the call for application is online, and all further details can be found on our website if you're looking for it. Over to the next slide, how to apply. We have created a central platform, a digital space in which we are collecting all the applications for all the 13 positions. So you are very much invited to go and check this out, following the link that you can also find in the project website. You will find everything there, and the platform will guide you step by step, also in checking that you upload all the necessary documents and you fulfill all the steps that are needed for the application. But here is already a list of what you would need to prepare, what you need to have handy when you access the platform and start your application process. For instance, we're asking, of course, a copy of your valid ID. We're asking for a cover letter, a CV, a copy of academic transcripts, and your master's diploma, because all of those universities do require you to already have a master's diploma to apply for a PhD. Some positions also require a portfolio, and these are the positions that are more practice-led. For the specific requirements of each individual university, also the English language proficiency certificate will need to be uploaded. As I was mentioning, evidence of the residency that helps us make sure that you comply with the mobility rule that I mentioned before. We also ask for 2 reference letters, which should ideally come from people that are outside of this network, especially when it comes to the professors that are involved in the selection panels, and therefore the lead supervisor and the co-supervisor of each of the 13 positions. And then we are also asking you to signal to us what are the positions that you are applying for. So here, ideally, we are asking you to rank the 3 most relevant positions. So the 3 positions that you are applying for, a maximum of 3. Then you can apply for 1, of course, you can apply for 2, and you can apply for a maximum of 3. So then it will be our duty to make sure that your preferences are respected, And in case that your first preference might not be respected, we will contact you directly in order to signal and pinpoint other suggestions, or even to signal to you whether we think it would be more appropriate for your profile to try and apply for another of the 13 positions. Over to the next slide. Yes, and I think that this is my last slide. Of course, we are available for any question that you might have. You can contact us via the social media channels. There is also a dedicated email address, but you can also contact directly the professors that are supervising one specific doctoral position for any further details on those specific research projects. So here is a suggestion that if you have questions that relate specifically to one university or to a specific research position, you contact directly the supervisors that are responsible for that position. You can find all the email addresses and the contact points in our website, and therefore it should be fairly easy to access them. If you have any specific question that concerns your academic background or the level of English, again, I encourage you to first check the requirements in the website of the doctoral school at the university for which you would like to apply, because typically those information are all available online. And then if you really cannot find it, also in that case, I advise you to contact the supervisor that is responsible for the position you want to apply for. And instead, if you have questions that concern specifically the doctoral journey, the overall process, the Marie Curie rules, and the rules that come from the European Commission, in that case, it would be best to contact the email address that you can find on the website, or contact us also via the social media channels, and we will make sure to reply to you as soon as we can.
Thank you so much, Marta. Yes, this has been a very beautiful and elaborative presentation. I hope you got a sense of the of the information that has been shared and got a sense of like, okay, is this something for me? Do I want to apply? And I thank you to all of you who are adding a lot of questions on the chat. What I would encourage you to do again, and let me show my screen again, to go to the Miro board, and we have prepared the spaces. So if you have a question for Professor Lucy Kimball, please write it here in this space. If you have some questions for Professor Marta Mortati, please ask them, write them here. As part of our space together, we have a few more interactions to go, and then you will be able to go into breakout rooms. And it would be very helpful to both if you already put your questions there. So when we have the time to speak to the people and go into breakout rooms, there are already some questions put there to start with. So that's my little encouragement. And on this note, I would really love to invite our guests who are from the field of practice, who are early career design researchers, and who can talk a little bit more on what does it mean. So maybe Hadass, we'll start with you as a current PhD student. Could you please share a little bit more about the topic of your research and how do your days look in practice?
Sure, thank you. So my name is Hadass, and I work in the field of participatory design. And the approach I'm taking in my PhD is called the participatory visual mapping. So basically, I'm running co-creative workshops with people. And what I'm trying to study is how participatory visual mapping can support or help stakeholders in complex design process in thinking through multiple temporalities, multiple dimensions of time. Human and more than human. So basically, that's the topic of my research. How my everyday life looks like, it's very much through the kind of scheme and funding of my PhD, which is probably different than this one. In general, I'm scattered around 3 different kind of activities. One is research that you will also be doing. The second one is teaching, and the third one is project work. I guess the first is the most relevant. Correct me if I'm wrong here. And in this line, what I mostly do is I plan workshops. Sometimes I do them by myself. Sometimes I join other researchers and practitioners. Some of them are being taken as part of other projects that I'm participating in. And then I run these workshops, I gather data and information, and I'm writing papers about it. So that's the core of my PhD. On top of that, I'm taking different PhD courses both in my university, but also in other universities. I'm joining supervisions with my supervisors. And that's more or less the research part.
Thank you so much for this and for sharing that openly. It sounds really interesting and quite an interesting approach to it. Again, if you have more questions, please go to the Miro board to the specific part and add your question to Hadas, and you'll be able to ask them later during the breakout rooms. And I would love to invite Olivia to share a little bit of your journey. And as someone who finished your PhD, could you please share how that impacted your career and what is the current focus of the work that you're doing and the pathways that your PhD has opened up for you after graduations? And also maybe a sneak peek into what are some of the social challenges that you work with right now and apply the learnings from the PhD that you've gone through?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I'll see if I get around all of those great questions. But thanks so much for inviting me to speak here. My name is Olivia. As you mentioned, Ina, I completed my PhD in 2022. I did an industrial PhD, which means that I worked in close collaboration with a company, so I could definitely bring forth this very practical or practice-based orientation of design research, which was very helpful in that setting. So I worked with a company who was establishing a new design team. They were also embarking on this strategic transition. And I was kind of curious about how could design research support this transition? Because of course, complex transitions comes with a lot of change, can mean new words, new practices, maybe new images, and so on. So I personally worked a lot with service design, and in my studies I found a lot of inspiration in theories and concepts from management and organization studies, because I could see that these people, they really know a lot about change, organizational change, and how to operate in a very complex environment. So they gave me a kind of vocabulary to address how service design might be a way of supporting this strategic transition. So what I could do with that is I could kind of also, again, through mostly experiments, I would say, with people, I could help to propose service design and design as a way of helping the organization by including various different perspectives, by grounding conversations in tangible artifacts, and taking this complex human-centered perspective into consideration while doing all of that. And today, I'm still a researcher. Now I'm a postdoctoral researcher, but things, or I guess maybe this is the transition into what pathways it has opened up for me. I still work a lot with transitions and change, but you could say that my context or the object of focus for my design practice and my design research practice has changed a bit. So now I'm lucky to work with the green transition of the built environment, of our living spaces and the urban realm. I work concretely on an EU project, but within this project, I'm still curious about including different perspectives and what that means in the role of design. But I guess you could say I've kind of broadened my scope a little bit to also look towards human-nature relations and how we might reconcile these, and to understand our connection to other species. So what we call more than human perspectives, I guess you could say, where I look into the role of both art and design. So I use the same kind of toolbox and approach, but the scopes are very, very different. Yeah, I hope that answered some of the questions.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I really love that notion that came up through you and what Hadas was sharing about beyond human rights and bringing other stakeholders into the conversation, and what does it mean to engage with that, and what does it mean to invite those stakeholders into the design of the systems that we are co-creating. That really feels very special and very unique. More about the uniqueness, actually, talking about that, I would love to invite my colleague, Carolina Giraldo, who is also designer and producer in deep demonstrations around circular economy, who will have a very special role in all of this, because she will be guiding PhD students in the secondment phase of the program. So maybe you can bring a little bit more light into this topic, and like, how would that look like, and how do you plan to engage with the students?
Thank you, Ina, and thank you all. So basically, on my background as well, it's in design. I was as well in the position to be a design PhD student. So so I understand, I think, profoundly how to integrate the experience of the PhD student into the context of Climate Kick. So inside Climate Kick, we have our core objective is introducing into government systems innovation as a service. So basically, and the focus, let's say, on what I do at the moment, I'm focused into one of the biggest programs that we have to promote systems innovation in governments. In the program is called Deep Demonstrations. The Deep Demonstration program basically like assist or co-creates with governments. How can we create circular economy or climate-oriented programs with a systems innovation approach? So basically, what we do in Climate Kick, it's a lot of design in practice, design into the field, and how, let's say, these even doctoral researchers can find, let's say, case studies, can find a field into, let's say, go hands-on into the practice. From, let's say, co-creation scenarios with government stakeholders, or let's say, how can we understand better policy landscapes, and how can design be a tool to transform these policy landscapes. So basically, inside what the secondment Climate Kit will be, is that with, of course, in alignment with each PhD tutor, will be, okay, what current project of Climate Kick could be suitable to have, let's say, a case study or even a test or testing a scenario for that PhD research. So basically, I am going to be joining you in the field of practice, of joining you on, okay, what kind of project that we could have in Climate Kick at the moment. We had projects in Ireland, in Slovenia, in Spain, also in the entrepreneurial area as well. We have several projects that could be a field of exploration on how design can be on the action with the kind of, let's say, on the ground experience Climate Kick has. So it will, of course, it will depend, and the secondment, of course, the idea is to provide the PhD student this experience on how to, let's say, put into the ground what the focus of their research. But of course, I can in the next session that we will have, if you have like more specific questions on what programs Climate Kick can offer, I can go deeper into the detail.
Thank you so much, Carolina. Like, personally, I love that practical aspect, that we're really going into the nitty-gritty, that we're not just talking in theory, but we're really learning things from practice and applying them in practice straight away, and seeing what emerges from this action kind of focused research. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And like, I would love to invite back Lucy and Marcia to have, we're of course running a little bit of the time. It's been super interesting to share all that information. I don't know about others, but I got really excited about the possibilities. But the question that I'm holding for now, and I think I have a glimpse, but maybe we can elaborate a little bit more on that. Like, what makes this program different from other PhD programs? What is unique about this? Maybe we can have a chat about that and see how the conversation goes.
Yeah, maybe I can kickstart, Lucy, if you agree. So one thing that for me is super special in this program is the network. Indeed, the network is one of the huge values, and the possibility to work internationally with so many different experts coming from so many different countries, backgrounds, but also from different disciplines, and also including the practice. This is something that you don't usually find in a PhD program. And if you do, you have to build it by yourself. It's really about your own personal, let's say, actions in order to create this community from scratch and understand who your reference points might be. But in this case, we already started it. And to be in that space, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for someone that wants to approach these topics and design research.
That sounds really, really fantastic, and sort of like breaking down the silos and working across the different geographies and bringing the kind of knowledge, the collective knowledge into the center from different perspectives. Yes, Lucy, is there anything you would like to add?
Just picking up on that is that, so the 13 candidates have these different sets of relationship. Like any PhD student, they have their own doctoral training in the university and their 2 main supervisors. That's usual. They will also have opportunities to learn from other PhD students in their university who might be from very different disciplines. Like if they come to the University of the Arts London, they might be mixing with PhDs using film as a methodology, as a practice area. So they already get a lot of sort of insight and inspiration from their PhD community in the university where they will be hired and working. But then they also have the network. So they've got sort of multiple levels of engagement. We recognize that this requires then some navigation because you have a lot of competing things going on. You have to, for example, excuse me, meet the PhD requirements. If you are at Marzia's university, you have to follow the documents and, you know, all the trainings that they provide, as well as in the network. So it requires somebody who's ready to make the most of these sort of multiple levels of engagement and opportunity, and get inspired and connect with others in the university and the other the cohort in our network, as well as all the experts that we've convened in the network.
So sort of like adding the layers of complexity and learning how you are in the kind of microcosmos of the system and university that you're part of with your research, but also what that means across different contexts, and layering different disciplines. That sounds very special. That sounds really interesting. And maybe deriving from that also sounds like a very interesting approach, and very new. So maybe the question that I'm holding to you is like, how do you feel the design research is changing the academic field?
That's a good question.
That's a $1 million one.
I think we've emphasized the constructivist nature of making knowledge and making worlds. That is central to the kind of design research that Marzia and I and our other partners are interested in. So it's tied to change, to thinking holistically about transitions, to issues of justice, to futures. And I think you could study the same topics in, for example, political science. And you might even do co-creation and work with citizens. But I think design as a framing for research with this constructivist knowledge is always pushing you to remaking the world. So I think there's sort of growing visibility in academia that design is a kind of transdisciplinary integrative mode of knowledge construction.
Yes, and I completely agree. And I would add to that one thing that design tries always to do is to take action. It's not theory for theory. It's theory to change real things, real situations, people's lives, processes, hopefully for the better. Of course, we don't always succeed, but that's the intent. And this is something that design research really tries to bring. Not many other disciplines have the same type of action-oriented approach. And if we can push a little bit more research to be out there in the world and do this type of concrete activities, I think that research would become so much more impactful and much nearer the real people and the real organizations in which we live every day. And we really need that, because research can really bring that novelty that we need nowadays in the face of the complex challenges that we have.
Fully agree with you. It's so fascinating to hear you speak, and also what comes up to me when I listen is this notion that basically all of us, we have a lot of knowledge that we carry, and like by creating those spaces for interconnection to happen, we're enhancing not just our own personal experience, but the whole field as well, and bringing that human and beyond human aspect into the picture, and learning what it looks like, what it means like to think from the wholeness of the system, not just from the entry point that we're stepping into it, which is incredible. Thank you for the work that you're doing and for this fantastic opportunity, and for all of you who are here. Hope you got a lot of inspiration and some additional information that you would be needing. So right now, what we're going to be doing, as I've mentioned from the start, we will transition into conversations in smaller groups. So you will have about 15 minutes to connect with our guests, and let me show my screen again and tell you a little bit more about how is it going to work. Yes, you will have a possibility to choose which room do you want to go to. And oh my gosh, I see a lot of questions already. That's fantastic. So if you would like to hear more about the application process, the profile of the successful candidates, and specific requirements, please join Professor Lucy Kimball in breakout room number 1. I'm not sure how you're gonna go around that. Oh, I'm also realizing that probably I'm not sharing my screen, I'm just talking to it, but there we go. Yeah, so there are lots of questions, so of course you won't have time to capture them all, but maybe you can capture some of them. If you have some questions about the network itself, international collaborations and secondments, please join Professor Marce Murtati in breakout room number 2. If you want to hear more about experience doing the doctoral research in design and what that means, please join Olivia in breakout room number 3. And if you want to hear more about doing the research in practice, I think this is just a double think similar questions around what that means on a daily basis and what PhD research means in practice, please join room number 4. And last but not the least, if you have some questions about the secondments and Climate Kick as being one of the partners who's going to host the network and students, please join breakout room number 5. I will stop sharing my screen, and I hope you enjoy your conversations. Hope it's not overwhelming for a lot of you, but let's be mindful of our time and make sure that our guests have the space to share with you some of the insights. All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had the good conversations. I saw that some of the groups were a little bit more crowded than others, which is understandable when we all need to know the specific processes, what are the steps, what is required, and how can we ensure that we apply in the reasonable time and have everything that is needed. But also I sneak peeked into other groups and there were some really interesting conversations happening. Unfortunately, we don't have time to talk to that. We're supposed to close in about 10 minutes, but maybe literally in 30 seconds, just maybe some impressions of, and some just like few phrases of what emerged in the conversation that you were having. And maybe we'll start sort of backwards. Maybe we'll start with Carolina and then go in the other direction. So Carolina, if you'd like to join in and just say very briefly, just some impressions of the conversations that you were having.
Okay, so the persons that joined the session were interested to know, of course, more about the focus of the secondment, the different programs that Climate Kick offers for the secondment, but also in the flexibility of how much they can propose and how much already, let's say, the programs that we offer are already, how rigid they are and how much they could propose in the research and how much, let's say, they can play with the network we offer. So that was interesting conversation because there is flexibility. Of course, we have programs, but of course we can co-design and co-create a bit the secondment with each student. Also about how long it was, and also about what other programs of Climate Kick could be a possibility to dive in entrepreneurial programs, net zero cities, and so on.
Fantastic. That sounds really interesting. I really love that co-creative part of it. And like, it's not fixed. There's a lot of flexibility and space for engaging. Hadas, I would love to invite you and maybe also can share just a few impressions of what the conversations you had in your room was about. And I'm not sure that we have her. Okay, then maybe wait, let's pass it on to Olivia. Oh, yeah, okay, she's joining right now, but let's hear from Olivia and then go back to Hadas.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We had a conversation about work-life balance and if you can balance having children while also doing a PhD, which was very interesting to talk about how you can kind of set expectations around that and what it would mean. And then we had an ending discussion around bringing other stakeholders to the table. So what does it mean to look beyond the human perspective?
Thank you, Olivia. Hadas, now when you rejoined, maybe you can just give just a few impressions, literally 30 seconds in terms of what did you talk about in your group?
Yeah, so we had some questions. For example, how should I approach these goals if I'm coming from a different field, like biology? So what's the role of design? How should I approach this entire paradigm? More specific questions of how to interpret the specific goal, which I answer always a good idea to contact the direct supervisors and ask them. How can I promote myself as a candidate or support my enrollment if my master thesis maybe was not the best? What other kind of things can I do? Or is it the practice space or is it only a pure academic assignments that I need to submit? That's more or less this.
That sounds like a juicy conversation as well. Thank you for sharing that. Marcia, would you like to share a few snippets from the conversation that were happening in your?
Yes, of course. So lots of technical questions, which is perfectly understandable. Many questions about networking possibilities, co-creation possibilities with peer candidates, as well as the secondment hosts and partners. as well as the professors in the network. Lots of questions about eligibility criteria. So hopefully I've been able to provide exhaustive answers to all of those. And again, I really invite you to go to our website, download the documents, and eventually contact directly the supervisors responsible for the position you're looking for.
Thank you. And last but not least, Lucy, you had the most participants in your room. I hope you still managed to navigate through chaos. But like, yeah, what did you talk in your group?
Well, I just went through all the questions on the Miro, which was very useful, and just tried to answer as many as possible. And most of them, as the same with Marzia's, were quite technical. A lot of it was just some of that information is in our existing call for proposals. Sometimes I can see that we should slightly rewrite it and emphasize things. There was also a question like some of the others had about sort of work-life balance. Can you have a baby, etc., in the middle of doing it? And the answer is you will be an employee of the university. You will have the same rights as any employee. And so pension, holiday, maternity, paternity leave, those rights are available. And what we haven't mentioned, I don't think so far on this call, is if you already have a child or family, there is some additional payments that come direct from Brussels to support you. So there is, it is to some extent family friendly, although I did my PhD when my child was 2 or something. And yeah, anyone who's got a 2-year-old, you know, life is complicated enough. But you know, there is some recognition of the needs. But you would be an employee of a university. You would have the same rights as other employees.
Thank you. And this flexibility is really important in our modern times and busy lifestyles. Thank you so much for this. I brought some of you again to the Miro board, to the space where we have the feedback. So maybe you can spare a moment just to add your answers to this 4 little questions that we have prepared for you. So what did you find particularly interesting in what was presented? What was not relevant for you? What was the most desirable thing that you would expect to find in a PhD experience? And also, what are some of the fears and concerns in getting closer to PhD application? And as has been mentioned, a lot of information is on the website as well. We'll post a link here again, but it's also on the Miro board in the resources space. And I really want to give a quick shout out to my colleague, Marina, who has been on the background listening through the conversation that we've been having and wondering if there are some snippets that you want to spotlight as well. And I actually don't see Marina with us. Well, I guess this will be it. She did put a lot of notes on the Miro board in the space, so maybe I just share my screen and show you where that is, so you can take a look at it at another moment. And before we close, I want to pass it on one more time to Marzia. And before I do that, like again, huge thank you from my side for joining and participating and engaging in the conversations. But over to you, Marzia, to close us off.
Yeah, thank you, Ina, and all the team at Climate Kick for this wonderful organization. We are super grateful, the entire network, to you and all the others for having helped us host these 2 events, which have been extremely successful. We had over 90 people when we started today, and same amount last time in November. So thanks very much to you, and thanks to all the partners, Olivia and Adas, who were here with us promoting what the PhD is and what to expect. Thanks, of course, to my co-coordinator, Lucy, and thanks to everyone who is interested in the work that we are doing, because we need to do this together. So thanks, everybody, for your enthusiasm and your interest.
And one more thing before we close again, on the Miro board, you actually can find the recording from the previous session that we had in November. It's right here in the previous bubble that I just showed. And then we will add the recording from this session in this space with the resources as well. So check it out in a few days. It will be there. We'll also send you a follow-up email with all the links that have been shared in the chats today. And at that note, maybe I would invite you all to just unmute yourself. And before you leave, maybe say goodbye in your own language. So we started with hellos. Let's finish with goodbyes with different languages.
Ciao.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao a
Bye.
tutti.
Namaste.
Kiitos.
Hasta pronto.
Ciao.
Bye bye. Tschüss.
Ciao ciao.
Godafes.